Some of you are following Jesus because it's popular. It's the popular thing to do right now. To follow Jesus, to represent Jesus. We rep Jesus. But I want to make sure you know exactly what it means to follow him. Yes, there are promises that are attached to following him, and these promises are ones that had your name on them before you were even put into your human body. And these are promises that are encoded in your spirit. Your spirit knows these things. But there is a great journey that you have to go through as a human to decode and unlock these promises. We talk about the beauty of following Christ, but in order for beauty to come from ashes, you have to get to the point of ashes. When something has been burnt to ash, it has gone through an extensive process. It's been burned up. It has been burned to a crisp. Only then can that ash be turned into something beautiful. We talk about the gold. But there is a fire that you go through in order to get to the gold. And so for those of you who are just following Jesus because it's a fad, I want to make sure you know the truth about who you're following. You are accounted as sheep for the slaughter. Why? Because he was. He was oppressed and afflicted, yet he did not open his mouth. He was led like a lamb to the slaughter, and he did not open his mouth. Jesus demands loyalty. If you want to be a follower of Jesus, you forsake everything else, everyone else, all of the people in your life up until this point who are not on this same path, you forsake them. Jesus talks about forgiveness, but he also talks about hating your father and your mother. I mean, it would seem like it's a contradiction. Do I forgive my father and my mother, or do I hate them? You must hate the world to follow Jesus. We talk about the oil of gladness, but there is an extensive time of mourning that takes place before the oil of gladness. There is a very difficult process that has to be endured on this side if you are choosing to follow Jesus. Because the same Father who prepared a crucifixion for him has prepared one for you. If you choose to pick up your cross and follow him, you must deny yourself. You must deny yourself. This goes beyond denying urges. Some of us can't even get past sexual urges. Denying yourself goes far beyond that. A sexual urge is merely a distraction for the denial that is required for your life. You are supposed to deny the things of this world because you're not from here. You may be in the world, but you are not of it. You're from a different place. And so you say you want to follow Jesus. But are you doing it just because it's popular? You follow him, your plans and your purposes, you set them aside. Because you realize, and it's interesting how he allows those things in your heart to come back around, but they come back around in his timing and in his way. But that can only happen if you deny yourself. I'm going to let Jesus explain this a little better to you. In Luke 14, starting at verse 26, I'm reading from the Amplified Version of the Bible. He says, "If anyone comes to me and does not hate his own father and mother and wife and children and brothers and sisters, yes, and even his own life, in the sense of indifference to or relative disregard for them in comparison with his attitude towards God, meaning your loyalty to God supersedes your loyalty to any of these people that have been a part of your earthly experience. He goes on to say, unless a person can do this, he cannot be my disciple. He is not worthy of me. Whoever does not carry his own cross, meaning expressing a willingness to endure whatever may come, to follow after me, because he believes in me, conforming to my example in living and in need be suffering, or perhaps dying because of faith in me. And again, this is talking about a loyalty to conform to Jesus's example. So again, do you really love Jesus? Because those who love him obey him. Or are you just in it for the good music? Continuing on, he says, for which one of you, when he wants to build a watchtower, does not first sit down and calculate the cost to see if he has enough to finish it? So again, are you calculating the cost of following him? Or are you just doing it because it's a fad? Because it's important that you know what comes with following Jesus Christ. Paul said that I would know him in the power of his resurrection and in the fellowship of his suffering. I mentioned earlier that the same Father who prepared a crucifixion for Jesus has prepared one for you. But likewise, the same Father that prepared a resurrection for Jesus on his own, God's Spirit raised Jesus from the dead. Nobody else was there. The same God that prepared a resurrection for Jesus has one prepared for you. But the question is, are you willing to die? Are you willing to forsake the things that you have become attached to on this side? All of your plans, all of your purposes. Because some of you have gone really far in forsaking it, but you're stagnant, you're stuck. Because you won't fully walk away. You're like Lot's wife. You keep turning, looking back. Everything God has for you is in front of you. Why are you looking back? Continuing on, verse 29. Otherwise, when he has laid a foundation and is unable to finish the building, all who see it will begin to ridicule him, saying, this man began to build and was not able to finish. So again, this is saying, because not everybody around you is following Christ. I don't care if they call themselves a believer or not. Are you willing to forsake those things? For this cause, are you willing to leave your father and your mother? Are you willing to leave your countrymen? Are you willing to leave your familiar land, the familiar things of your life to follow him? Are you willing to endure all that comes with this? Or are you just following him because it's popular right now? Because the time will come when it won't be so popular. And if you don't count the cost now, you will end up a casualty later. Verse 31. Or what king, when he sets out to meet another king in battle, would not first sit down and consider whether he is strong enough with 10,000 men to encounter the one who is coming against him with 20,000? So this is speaking of the journey ahead of you. Again, yes, there are beautiful things, but the beauty comes after the ashes. Are you willing to go the journey? This example here that Christ is using, he's saying, you're going into battle and you have 10,000 men, but the one that's coming up against you has 20,000. That means you're outnumbered. Are you willing to still go? He's saying, count the cost, because this is what it means to follow me. Verse 32, or else, if he feels he is not powerful enough, while the other king is still a far distance away, he sends an envoy in and asks for terms of peace. So what this is saying is that a person, when they realize what they're up against, they try to turn back and make amends with the very ones they are sent to go against. It's interesting how Jesus says he didn't come to bring peace to the earth. And this again would appear to be a contradiction. Here he's prophesied as the Prince of Peace, but then out of his own mouth he says, don't think that I've come to bring peace on the earth. I haven't come to bring peace, but a sword of division between believers and unbelievers, between those who say they're following me and those who are actually followers of mine. He says, I've come to set a man against his father, and a daughter against her mother, and daughter-in-law against her mother-in-law, and a man's enemies will become the members of his own household, when one believes and another does not. And again, everybody who says they're a believer is not. And again, everyone who calls themselves a Christian is not really a follower of Christ. They're just in it for the name. They're just in it for the title. But Christ says, whoever loves his father or mother more than me is not worthy of me. Whoever loves their son or daughter more than me is not worthy of me. And whoever does not take up his cross, meaning is not willing to endure whatever comes, to follow me, meaning following my example, not man's example. Not a lot of the examples we see from people who claim they're followers of him. He said, if you're not willing to do this, you are not worthy of me. He's asking, do you love me more than these? Do you love me more than these people, than these things? Or are you going to end up denying me later when the going gets tough? Is this just about your zeal? Are you with me just to be in the in crowd? Continuing on with the verse. So then, none of you can be my disciple who does not carefully consider the cost. And then, for my sake, give up all his own possessions. Are you willing to give up the picture that has been in your imagination of how your life should be? What you've been programmed to believe is a successful life. Because Jesus's life didn't look successful to most people. And those who followed him, they went through a lot of stuff. But they were able to endure because they were loyal to him. What made them loyal in that way? It's the same thing that will make you loyal in that way. And the only way to find that out about him is to go directly to him. You have to ask him to show you how the reward of him is better than these rewards around you that are fleeting, but are powerful enough to convince you for many years. This world has brainwashed us into thinking that things and people that don't really matter. And not only that, but that they matter more than Christ. Verse 34, therefore salt is good, but if salt has become tasteless, with what will it be seasoned? It is fit neither for the soil nor for the manure pile. It is thrown away. He who has ears to hear, let him hear and heed my words.